This session grew out of a variety of circumstances. One of them was a discussion on our discussion email list, email list, about language, about terminology. And so part of the presentation is going to be taking from a suggestion from Reverence, a book called Fluent in Faith. It's going to be referenced. And also this the title refers to a course that Janet is going to be offering. I'm not sure who will go because we've set a high bar. 6 people have to commit themselves in writing to
all 5 sessions.
To go to 5 sessions.
A legal document.
A legal document.
Has to be notarized.
And there will be optional times, and I'm not sure exactly how to work out the times, but 2 or 3, and Janet will mention that arrangement. But at the end of the session, we'll have an opportunity to sign up, but also by email. And when would the first session be?
Partly it'll depend if we only have 2 people sign up today. We'll be doing a little advertising.
Okay.
And see if
If you get 6, then...
It'll be sometime in April.
What's the tuition?
Your time and attention. Your time, attention, and your willingness to participate.
Also, traditionally, I'm passing around a list, name, and email if you want to be on the adult forum email list. It's low volume, mostly only announcements. It could be we'll have a discussion, although I'm not sure about that. So I'll pass that around. And otherwise, welcome. Oh, and I also wanted to mention, Janet has 2 adult children that live here, and a granddaughter who's the one who wears the princess costumes.
Yes, you will see. Oh, don't call them costumes. She's 6, Mandy. You've probably seen her around with the sparkly shoes and things like that. And she dresses herself, and one day she spilled some tea during coffee hour on her dress and was getting upset about that, and I said, oh, don't worry, you can change it when you get home. No, Mommy says that whatever I put on, I have to wear all day. I told her I thought her mother might make an exception in this case. I'd like us to start out by reading together the reading We Arrive Out of Many Singular Rooms. I didn't have enough for everybody, so please share with your neighbor. No, those are something else. Can everybody look on anyway? It's on one side of a sheet of paper that has a list on the other side. The side that looks like this. Okay, shall we start, please? We arrive out of many singular rooms, walking over the branching streets. We come to be assured that brothers and sisters surround us to restore their images on our eyes. We enlarge our voices in common speaking and singing. We try again that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Our eyes reclaim the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. The warmth of their hands assures us, and the gladness of our spoken names. This is the reason of cities, of homes, of assemblies in the houses of worship. It is good to be with one another. And I'd like us to sing, many of you know the song, some of you don't, the From You I Receive. I'll sing it through first so we sort of end up having the same timing. And then please join me as you start to learn it. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Keep going. From you I receive, to you I explain that whole year. Time isn't always. And the spaceship landed, and God got out, and she was black. So began my adventure with the use of religious language other than what had been taught to me in my liberal Congregational church, which became part of the United Church of Christ. And it was a wonderful adventure and has been. I have gone through times where I moved away from Christianity initially because of language, because it was two parts of language. One, it was mostly male and didn't always resonate with me. And the second one is that I didn't want to be restricted to Christian stories to make points about things. So that's where I start from talking about language today. What I want us to do as a way of introducing ourselves is, and I will write them down, I want us to say, my name is, I am comfortable with the term, and we're talking about religious terms, the things that you're okay with and things that make you cringe. I am comfortable with, find a word, and I am not comfortable with, and another word. So for me, my name is Janet. I am comfortable with the word sanctuary. So there, come down there. I am not comfortable with the term non-believer. Let me give you a couple minutes to just think about that, because if you're like me, when somebody says to come up with something, you totally blank. Sing a song.
When you say comfortable, do you mean comfortable in using
comfortable
yourself,
in using
or comfortable
it.
in not debating someone if they use it?
Comfortable in using it yourself. It may not stop you from having to debate it with somebody else, but comfortable in using it yourself. Term you're comfortable with, and a term you're not comfortable with. I'm going to start over here with Sam, and we'll go down the row. If you haven't come up with something yet, pass for the moment, but I do want everybody to have said this by the time we get through introducing everybody. So, your name is?
Sam.
I am.
The only thing I'm sure of. I'm comfortable with the word open. And uncomfortable with you must.
Okay. What I would prefer, although these are great, and we'll probably talk about them, is if you can come up with religious language.
That's what I did.
I'm comfortable with the word church. Yes, I'm comfortable with heaven and hell. Well, just one for comfortable, one uncomfortable.
We should comment on what other people say.
Right. No comments. No, but it's going to take, the entire time would be taken up with doing this if we do it. All I want is
No whispering.
Right. I'm sorry. Uncomfortable with
So I'm
that.
going to have to leave that out of my vocabulary.
Okay, Martha. Is it okay to double up with church?
Sure.
Okay. God.
I'm both comfortable and uncomfortable with almost everything.
Take a couple minutes to pick. next, your name is?
Deb? Share. Very comfortable with your suggestion that you're going to share.
Share.
And that "you must" is pretty close to my the bottom of my pile.
Okay, I'm going to put a couple of things on here that may help. You know, it goes on from there with things too, just to I was going to put up a bunch ahead of time, but clearly I did not do that. So, Bob, do you want to go back to you, or do you want to go on and then come back?
Comfortable with spirit. And uncomfortable with Eucharist.
I'm not sure if this is quite what you mean. My name is Greg. I'm for some reason.
By spelling it. Try not to do any sentences. Try to give me 2 words. Try to just give me 2 words.
It's the same word twice. Lord to myself. For some reason, I don't even know why. Like when I'm giving thanks.
No, never mind the explication. Just the word.
Lord to myself. Not comfortable with using the word Lord with others. To I'm talking with.
Okay. But it's uncomfortable with the word sexton, or it's a little open to...
No, please try to get just 2 words. Don't tell me why you're comfortable with that. Just the word you're not going to
Sexton, and not comfortable using the word priest.
Yes.
2 words about
Comfortable with church and not comfortable with God.
Yeah, we know that.
I'm Jonathan.
Which way do you spell Jonathan?
Jonathan. I am comfortable with divinities in the plural. I'm not comfortable with the word covenant.
My name is Don. I'm comfortable with summer session. Uncomfortable with prayer.
Could you put that up here? Just put it over. Okay, back here.
I am comfortable with the word covenant. I am getting increasingly uncomfortable with the word church.
I'm Andrew.
Andrew?
I'm comfortable with the word God. I'm not comfortable with the word rules.
Elsie. I'm comfortable with love. I'm uncomfortable with fornication. Sandra?
I am comfortable with sacred. And I am not comfortable with I know what I'm not comfortable with. Can I come back?
Sure.
Okay. So, the universe and afterlife, or life after death.
My name's Angela. I have a little problem. All words here seem foreign to me, so you can skip me.
Okay, we'll go on to we'll come back to you.
I'm Anne with an E. I'm comfortable with congregation, and I'm not comfortable with condemnation.
I'm Barbara. I'm comfortable with Lord. I am not comfortable with mindfulness.
Liz, I'm comfortable with understanding and uncomfortable with judgmental.
Marie.
Comfortable with community. Uncomfortable with church as far as you use, not other
Before I go to the next sheet, Angela, did you come up with some words and share?
I am not comfortable with sin.
With what?
Sin.
Sin. Is there another place we can put this? There are no more clips. You did have some sheets. Oh, here it is. Okay, where did we leave off?
Wendy. Comfortable with church and uncomfortable with church and altar.
Church and altar. Somewhere I have, look in there, I brought tape, see if it's still in the bag.
Get some tape.
David, I'm comfortable with faith, and I'm comfortable with church.
Amy, A-I-L-E-E-M. I'm comfortable with God. I'm uncomfortable with exclusively male God
My name is Blanche. I'm comfortable with fellowship.
With or without an E?
With an E. I'm comfortable with church. I'm Judy, and I'm comfortable with church and uncomfortable with the
Which way do you spell Judy?
J-U-D-Y.
June. Belief.
Sin.
Oliver. Revere.
Chalice.
Judy. I'm very comfortable with prayer. Prescriptive. David?
Comfortable with holy, uncomfortable with predestination.
Did you miss anybody? We'll come in while we're in the middle of this. So, lots of different words and lots of words that some people are comfortable with and some people are not comfortable with. And I think those of you who were on the listserv and saw the discussion going back and forth had already figured that out. But I think it's very instructive to see all of these things. Now, we cannot go into all of those words today, unfortunately. But we will do a little bit of that. The differences in the language in terms of how we feel about them, whether they make us cringe or whether we're comfortable with them for our own use but not comfortable talking with someone else about them, has to do with us, not the word or the other person. The word God is just 3 letters put together, either capitalized or not. But for some people, that means one thing, and for some people, that means another thing. One of the things I'd like you to get out of today is the difference between a definition of something and the meaning of something. The definition is how you can talk about it. These are the words I use to define God. The meaning is what it evokes from you, the feeling that it evokes from you. So you may be comfortable talking with God if you're talking with somebody from a fundamentalist church and they're doing the talking and you're doing the listening. You may be on the outside very comfortable with it because they're saying God. And you know exactly what they mean by that, don't you? Do you?
No.
That's another thing that I hope we get out today, and that is what I mean by a word is not necessarily the same as what somebody else means by that same word. So I want to caution us against making assumptions. I think my 2 daughters, who are now well-grown, probably got tired of hearing me say over and over again, never assume anything. That's the lifelong lesson they will take to their graves, I think, from their mother. Never assume anything. So we're going to talk about some of those words today. The first one I want to talk about is covenant. And I know some people are comfortable with it. Some people are uncomfortable with it. Some people don't know what the heck it means. And we're gonna do a little bit on that. We have a history of being covenanted with each other. That means expressing very explicitly how we will behave toward each other in order to be able to be a religious group together. And is Unitarian Universalism a religion? I didn't see too much along those lines that people were talking about. Yes, we are, by my definition, because a religion is something that brings people together with common purpose, with common history, whether you know it or not, even though you think you may have left all your history behind in order to come here, who are together by choice in most cases. It may or may not involve belief. For us, it doesn't. So we don't have a creed. We can't say we all believe. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and some of you can go on with that. That wasn't one of my congregation's things that we said, so I don't know the rest of it. But we don't do that here because we know darn well we don't all use the same language and we don't all mean the same thing by the same words. What we do is covenant together to say how we will behave with each other. We will be respectful. We will listen. We will not jump in and shout somebody down if they believe something different from what we do. It's really, really hard being a Unitarian Universalist. Because sometimes you can't talk with your best friend in the church, congregation, society, etc., 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 because you have such different ways of thinking about something. I would like us to be able to get past the reactiveness of hearing certain words and to remember that just because they hit us wrong, whether it's because of our childhood upbringing or whatever, doesn't mean that we have to have that happen now. The fundamentalists have co-opted all the good words. That's the problem. And we have let them do it, as have the liberal Christian churches. So that God means whatever, white grandfather up in the sky, or sin means a certain thing. Salvation means only through Jesus Christ our Lord and Savior. All of these kinds of things. I can say salvation and be talking about the salvation of the earth, what we can do to save the earth. I can talk about sin in the Jewish context, which was missing the mark, like shooting an arrow and having it not hit the target, but it gives you the chance to come back and do it again. So, and I can talk about prayer as sitting silently, what some other people might call meditation. Other people, I don't really have a word for it. Sitting silently and letting myself be within the universe. And that's another thing that religion does, is helps us figure out who we are in the context of the universe. You're going to be getting together with people you can talk with about that, not people who say, this is the way it is, there's a three-tier, there's heaven here, there's earth here, and there's hell here. Well, I'm not going to be comfortable with that particular picture. Now, I'd like us to do a little bit of practicing here. So I'd like you to pair up, and if there is an odd number, then maybe there can be 3 in a group. And I want the first person to pick the word that they chose as comfortable for them. And take 2 minutes, and I'll time you, 2 minutes to talk about that word and why it is comfortable. By saying, when I hear the word, I feel not nobody else is right if they say it, not, whatever. When I hear the word God, I feel, so that you're owning your own version of the word and your own amount of comfort with the word. The other person, in the meantime, will be sitting quietly. If that means putting your hands over your mouth to keep from jumping in, go ahead and do it. You're going to be listening. And this is the way you're going to be listening. You're going to have a relaxed body, because this is what we often do. Somebody says something to us, and we're leaning forward because we're ready to jump in with our own opinion. The shoulders are up, ready to say, but. And the throat is tense because it's got those words right there, just ready to come out. So we're going to, at the beginning of this time, we're going to breathe, let the shoulders drop, let the throat relax, and listen to the other person. And then we'll switch. So very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, pair up. Okay, let's gather back together. 2 or 3 people, just shout out. How did it feel to be able to say the word you were comfortable with or not comfortable with without being interrupted?
Artificial.
Artificial?
Yeah.
I don't think we did it very well. But it was great, but it was more follow-up, what did you mean by that?
See, that's not what we were supposed to be doing. I'm sorry, what?
Liberating.
Liberating.
For the first minute.
For the first minute. Yeah. So 2 minutes can be an awfully long time.
I think it was liberating for me too. It was the first time it ever occurred to me to talk about it.
First time it ever occurred
But I
to
had
me
a
to talk
chance
about
to
it.
tell anybody what I thought about that word.
Okay.
Clarifying.
Clarifying? You had to figure out what you really were saying. Judy?
I just think it really teaches you a modicum of respect. And I'm working on that, because I am one of those people who just, I connect with somebody and I get so excited. And they say something and I want to respond. That's just, there's
Okay,
quite a
good. I'm going to have to cut you off just so that we can. So how did it feel to listen without jumping in, for those of you who managed to do it?
I really appreciated that because we don't often have permission to go up to people. I mean, Don and I have not talked a lot in the past, and look them in the face for a long period of time and be silent and receive, because sometimes that can seem a bit creepy. Like, I don't want you all to think that I'm just staring at you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I didn't realize that our uncomfortable words segued into each other. So that I didn't realize when I stopped and she started that it was, she was into her word, fornication and sin. They, it was very therapeutic.
Good. One thing's been accomplished here today. Somebody has had a therapy session and it worked. I did hear one thing, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick on you. I was able to catch part of your conversation about the word covenant, and I liked hearing it, because what I think you were saying was that you were uncomfortable with the word because it's archaic and because it's being imposed upon us by the UUA, and there were a couple of other things that I'm not getting. So let me go back a little bit farther with covenant. It is an archaic word. It goes back, at least in the Jewish and Christian traditions, to the Jews and God having a covenant with each other. God will take care of his people, the Jews, if the Jews will eschew any other gods, be true to him only, and, doesn't say convert everybody, act as the example of what the best people are like in their worship and in their daily lives. So this was the covenant. Now, of course, God would get angry and say, I'm going to destroy the world, this wasn't working out, have to make a covenant with somebody else, and the Jews would forget they were supposed to be doing certain things, and they'd start worshiping Baal or somebody else, but the covenant was there so it could be called upon and say, this is the behavior we agreed on. Now, it's different from a contract. The contract is, I give you so much money and you give me so many hours of work. That's a legal thing. A covenant is a behavioral contract. How I'm treating you, how you are treating me, and it's an agreement. So yes, it's archaic, but both the Unitarians and the Universalists had covenants, as opposed to statements of faith. Very big difference. Statement of faith, I believe that, and everybody has to be that or you're out. Covenant, we will behave this way toward each other to make this the kind of place where everyone is free to have his or her own opinion.
Let's go back to your original root, the Jews and the covenant with God.
Quickly.
Very, very presumptive that as a Jew I'm going to speak for that thing that I call God. There's no two-way street.
From their point of view, there was a two-way street. There were agreements on how God would behave. God would let the Jews live, and God would make the...
But that's a human decision.
Yeah, well, we can get into that. All religion is human. It's like they used to say, I forget who it was that said all politics is local. All religion is autobiographical. It's based on your own experience. For instance, I'll get back to you in a second. If you took two 7-year-olds, two 7-year-old girls, one lives in the country, one lives in the inner city. With one, life goes on in cycles and in seasons. The growing seasons, the harvesting seasons. Generally, it's the old people who die. Sometimes a young person dies. Sometimes a farmhand gets a hand caught in a piece of machinery and bleeds to death. But life and death are all natural parts of the seasons and cycles. Now, we've got a 7-year-old growing up in the worst part of the worst ghetto in a city. Her cousin was shot last week and killed. She has to be accompanied to school by her parents because it's too dangerous for her to walk. She doesn't know when she's going to die. She has no real concept about she's going to be 99. You know, unlike Grandma in the country who was still canning and freezing vegetables at 99 and things like that. Who has the right concept of what death and life are all about? They both do, and it's based on their experience. And so our religious impulses, our religious thoughts, the way we use words, the way it drives us crazy when other people use words that we don't think they should, or whatever, is based on our experience. Yes?
So, given that, that's why covenant makes me feel excluded. Because I would like to be a Unitarian Universalist and think of myself that way, but I'm not a Unitarian, and I'm not a Universalist. And when you say, we have this history, I'm thinking, who is we? When you say we covenant, I think, who is we? You're taking me and you're putting me on the outside, and I think that we do this not just in language, but with our rituals here, that we say we're only this thing. And I don't have the Jewish or Christian background. This is not natural for me, and I think for a lot of people in the Ithaca area, it isn't. So that covenant is not covenanting the way you're describing it. It pushes me out. It says you're not part of this tribe. It says you're not part of the league.
Interesting. I'm hoping that what would happen eventually was that people would appreciate the history, because Unitarianism and Universalism, which until 1961 were two separate liberal Christian denominations.
1961.
61, I'm sorry, I say 60, 61. Syracuse, New York, was where the signing of it all came. That again, covenant is behavioral, not belief. So the fact that you don't consider yourself a Unitarian or a Universalist, I hope that when you are together with everyone else, and I hope the way we are with you, is to let you express that. This is a Unitarian Universalist congregation, even though our name says First Unitarian Society. We did join the movement, so we are Unitarian Universalist. And I think it's good to appreciate the history, because man, it is interesting. And I don't have time to go into it, but think of how in the 1700s in this country, when the state church in Massachusetts, and it was a state church to which you paid taxes whether you were a member or agreed with it or not, for you to suddenly say, you know, Calvin, I think God's too good to send his children to hell. I'm using the words of the time. Wow. With Calvinism, God had decided before you were born whether you're going to heaven or hell. And it didn't matter what you did in your life, it wasn't going to make one bit of difference. Now the interesting thing, though, was that most of the elect, or the people who were going to go to heaven, happened to be white males who owned property. Yeah, I mean, there's just this little aside thing going on here. And the Unitarians were saying, the Trinity doesn't make sense to us. You know, how can you have 3 and 1 and 1 and 3, and you keep trying to tell me these are separate, but they're together, and it just doesn't compute, and I don't see anything in the Bible that says that. and therefore I don't believe it. Now, all of these things happened gradually, but the Universalists organized themselves first in 1790, and the Unitarians organized themselves first in 1825. So we have a long history of breaking away from the status quo.
I know you want to segue into another issue, and I thought I might help with that. What the issue is here with John is that he brings a different history to this place.
Right.
And you're talking about
That's right.
a history that many people may share, but John brings a different history. Actually, Sue and I might be an example of the ghosts in this place, because Sue and I are both former Catholics, raised as Catholics. So we bring a different history. So the Unitarian history is not our history.
Right.
And yet we are here now.
You're here now, and we are building the present. We are building the present, and we are building the future. But in order to even know why we use the term Unitarian and Universalist, it's really incumbent upon us to learn a little bit about the history.
Is that one of those
we keep
must?
moving.
We
Yes.
must?
Yeah.
No. It's It is highly incumbent upon us, I think, to know that history, so you can say, I can appreciate that the reason this congregation is the way it is today, open to my thoughts as well as others, is because of what came before.
But we have many sources. And
We do.
if we have those others,
That's what I want.
Hinduism and Native American religions and whatever you bring here, and that history is not part of the history equally, we have second-class members in this country.
But the way you explain covenant.
I just want to speak to that word since we're on it.
Yes.
I dislike the word covenant too. So what I do internally is I understand there's other meanings to it, and I change my brain to thinking as a contract or an agreement. And we all agree on the 7 principles, no matter where we come from. Or
not necessarily, but that is our
that's the thing.
so to speak, that is the covenant. But you notice what this says. This is, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. So we're talking about the congregations. When the congregations joined into Unitarian Universalism, those who bought in and they didn't all, covenant and then what our principles are. And those principles have changed over the years. They're not written the same as they were in 1961. Parts of them were, parts of them were not. But here's what I want to very quickly go into. What we don't talk about often is the living tradition we share draws from many sources. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit. An openness to the forces that create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Wisdom from the world's religions which inspire us in our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Spiritual teachings of the earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. We almost never talk about the sources, but they're there.
I think because that has been updated to meet today's terms, all of it is non-sectarian as I see it. When we use these other terms, these Christian terms, that might have been fine in the 1960s, but not today, because it is, and my reason for writing that article is intellectual, and it is we are misrepresenting who we are. If we are saying we are non-sectarian, we are accepting of all belief systems. Then I know Jewish people who cringe to even walk in our doors because they see it as a church. And I think we need to become creative and update our language to meet today's needs.
And we will continue to do that individually and as a religious group.
I'm uncomfortable with the word evil.
Okay, well, and lots of people are too. And we're not going to be able to get into more words. What I want you to do is on the back of where the song is, we talked about the word church.
Are we collectively agreed that we want to make all Christians uncomfortable in this?
Yes, that's the other
I want to
thing.
make sure that's a rule. I didn't.
Yes, not only are there Unitarian Universalist Christians who probably come out of one or the other of the two traditions. If you go to General Assembly, you will see UU Christian ministers wearing the clerical collar.
Oh, yes.
Are they not welcome? All right, so anyway, we had talked about the word church quite a bit at one point, not today necessarily, but so I have put on the back of this what the churches in our district call each other. We have First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany, the Pullman Memorial Universalist Church, Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Athens and Shishikwan, and I'm going to do what I don't like to do, but I'm going to go to UU Auburn UU Society, the Unitarian Church of Barneveld, UU Fellowship in Big Flats, UU Congregation of Binghamton, the Brockport UU Fellowship, UU Church of Buffalo, UU Church of Canandaigua, UU Church of Canton, First Universalist Church of Central Square, UU Fellowship of Chautauqua, UU Church of Portland, UU Church of East Aurora, UU Congregation of Northern Chautauqua, UU Congregation of Glens Falls, UU Church of Hamburg, the UU Hornell Alfred, I love this, Hornell Alfred Unitarian Universalist Society, and they refer to themselves as our house. Come to our house. H-A-U-U, that's our house. First Unitarian Society of Ithaca, St. Paul's Universalist Church in Little Falls, First Unitarian Universalist Church, Unitarian Universalist Community, UU Society, and it goes on. So we do need to get creative about what we call ourselves, and I perfectly understand the limitations of the word church, the limitations of the word congregation, the limitations of the word society. My point, I guess, is that we need to stop being as reactive. When I hear that word, I feel, not, I don't like that word, so you stop using it.
I'm just looking at the variety of names. I find that I was wondering whether there was a difference in the structure of these different organizations, because I know that generally fellowship usually is lay-led. The other ones are their choice of what to call themselves. It's easy to say something is not a church when their building looks like this. These are Utica, Binghamton, Watertown, and Amherst. It's not quite as easy to get away from the word church when the buildings look like this. Sam.
I remember back when a minister by the name of Jack Taylor was here, and he said there was a movement then. Some people wanted to call us a society and put it on everything and get rid of the word church. He said, don't you do it. You may not like the definition of a church, but it has a legal meaning. And we would miss a lot of benefits of being in church.
Our tax-exempt status for one thing.
Just little things. How important is it to you?
Little minor details.
How much more are you willing to give?
ACLU has tax-exempt status.
Yeah, we can call it. The point is, we need to talk about this together. We need to not say, as I mentioned before, I don't like that word, so you can't say it. We need to say, what do you mean when you use that word? This is what I mean when I use that word. Oh, interesting. And what I have said to people, this tends to be more conservative Christians when they talk about a pure perfect experience, and it's absolutely this way, I've said, and it has worked wonderfully. that's really interesting, and I'm not saying it in a put down, that's really interesting. That has not been my experience. That has not been my experience. Then it opens it up to some conversation. One more thing, and then we got to go.
What I really appreciate about this process that I found that has to do with 2 weeks in a row of listening for 2 minutes is that when you do listen for 2 minutes, you find out what they mean by the word, and it opens up a space for that understanding, and not for that immediate response to shut them down and say what you say. So I think to me, the process is the goal. The goal of having a process that we will actually listen to one another is and not have to be enforced in 2 minutes. So I think that, to me, that's why I find it liberating, because it's liberating not just for me to have that space, but to give the space is liberating. So I think that as an exercise, I find it more and more empowering every time we do it.
Okay, we're going to need to wrap this up. So what I would like to do, and then I will talk after we sing our other song. I will talk just a minute about the class that I will lead if there are enough people who are interested. So this is a song that comes from our supplement book. And it goes, building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all our voices and all our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Again, building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. That is my wish.
Same as the top one.
That's right. I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live. The class that I am proposing to teach has a double title. It's called Owning Your Religious Past, the Haunting Church. People have already complained about the haunting church. Both for the word church and the word haunting. So we're going to go with the first part of that, owning your religious past, because that is something that we need to do. In that 5-session course, and the sessions build on each other, so if you're going to come, plan on coming. It's not a drop-in thing. It's a class in 5 sessions. Clearly you may get ill during one of them, but don't come and think, well, I can only make 2 out of the 5. Please don't sign up. It helps us learn, goes back to our childhood upbringing, whether it's within a religion or not within a religion. Figure out what from there is maybe making us reactive when somebody says the word or the word. Helps us reclaim what was good about that. Yeah, you know, I remember playing in the corners of the church, my husband said. And it was after Sunday school, and the adults were having coffee, and there was just a neat little corner, and the kids would all go there, do things like that. Clearly it was a place that it was comfortable for them to do that. So that was something that he wanted to bring into the present, being comfortable in a place. Man, I loved those stained windows. I just don't believe in the theology, but I miss those stained windows. Well, turn around in our sanctuary and look at the stained window on the back, Anna Botsford, Comstock. First woman to be awarded a full professorship at Cornell, is that right?
Yes.
Am I remembering that correctly? And also a Camp Comstock, Girl Scout camp, was named after her. So there are things, and well, I didn't go to a church, but I always heard the word God talked to about like that, and so that word just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Well, how did you hear it? And what was the context? And how might you change that? So I will have a sign-up sheet up here. I could do the thing on 1 o'clock on Sundays, or, this is not an and, or 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, or 7 o'clock on Fridays. So the sign-up sheet has a place for anybody who's available at one of those times to write your first, second, and third preference of what time we meet. And if there are enough people who can meet at the same time, we will begin the class sometime in April. Now, let me see.
So we need to make a covenant with you.
You need to make a covenant with me to attend regularly. I want to leave us with this. It's called That Which Holds All by Nancy Schaefer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said. Holy One. Mystery. God. But then, thinking that these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot fully be addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, ancient Holy One, mystery we will not ever fully know, gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, Thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant. But then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew that technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by any one thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said, water. Someone said, Guan Yin. And then, womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen. Thank you for coming, and please continue these conversations, giving each other time to hear what you mean.
Janet, where will she be? Where will she be?
Sign-up sheet.
More chairs. Oh, absolutely. I promise there's going to be
Sign-up sheet is ready.